Hi, I'm Michael Kurosh. I live in Santa Barbara, California, one of the most beautiful places on earth. My design center is where people come to reimagine their homes and spaces. I work with the best designers, clients with broad tastes, and experts who navigate the fascinating world of design. I'm always excited to learn something new, and I never say no to a challenge. This is Design Santa Barbara. Welcome to Design Santa Barbara. I'm Michael Kurosh, and today we are in Dublin, Ireland. We would like to explore the city, its cultural heritage, and some of its magnificent architecture. But before we do that, a fact is just about a quarter of the Ireland's population lives in Dublin, and just about half of the whole population lives in the greater Dublin area. That's a lot of people. Let's explore the city. Please join us. The earliest reference to Dublin is sometimes said to be found in the writings of Ptolemy, the Egyptian Greek astronomer and cartographer around the year 140, who refers to a settlement called Iblana. Beginning in the 9th and 10th centuries, there were two settlements where the modern city stands. The Viking settlement of about 841 was known as Dublin, from the Irish Dublin or Black Pool, referring to a dark tidal pool where the river Puddle entered the Liffey on the site of the castle gardens at the rear of Dublin Castle. And a Gaelic settlement, Ath Cliath, or Fort of Hurdles, which was further upriver at the present-day Father Matthew Bridge at the bottom of Church Street. Viking rule of Dublin would end completely in 1171 when the city was captured by King Dermot MacMurrough of Leinster, and Dublin became the center of English power in Ireland after the Norman invasion of the southern half of Ireland. On 15 May 1192, Dublin's first written Charter of Liberties was granted by John, Lord of Ireland, and was addressed to all his French, English, Irish, and Welsh subjects and friends. On 15 June 1229, his son Henry granted the citizens the right to elect a mayor. County Dublin was the first county in Ireland to be shired in the 1190s, and the city became the capital of English Lordship of Ireland. Dublin was peopled extensively with settlers from England and Wales, and the rural area around the city. In the 14th century, this area was fortified against the increasingly assertive native Irish, becoming known as the Pale. In Dublin itself, English rule was centered on Dublin Castle. The city was also the main seat of the Parliament of Ireland from 1297, which was composed of landowners and merchants. Important buildings that date from this time include St. Patrick's Cathedral, Christ Church Cathedral, and St. Audien's Church, all of which are within a kilometer of each other. Throughout the Middle Ages, the city paid protection money or black rent to the neighboring Irish clans to avoid their predatory raids. In 1315, the Scottish army under Edward the Bruce burned the city's suburbs. As English interest in maintaining their Irish colony waned, the defense of Dublin from the surrounding Irish was left to the Fitzgerald Earls of Kildare. Dublin and its inhabitants were transformed by the upheavals of the 16th and 17th centuries in Ireland. This era saw the English conquest of the whole island under the Tudor dynasty, while the Old English community of Dublin were Satisfied with the conquest and disarmament of the native Irish, they were deeply alienated by the Protestant Reformation that had taken place in England, being almost all Roman Catholics. In 1592, Queen Elizabeth I opened Trinity College Dublin, located at that time outside the city on its eastern side as a Protestant university for the Irish gentry. However, the important Dublin families spurned it and sent their sons instead to Catholic universities on continental Europe. We will be back after a short commercial break. Stay tuned. Today we are with Miss Sherry Bagai from Sherry B Design, and she's our in-house window and drapery specialist. So, Miss Sherry, viewers had a question as why should they actually use window coverings in their home where they can have it free and open and everybody can, God knows, look in and they can look out. Could you explain?
There are many reasons, obviously, but I'm going to give you 6 important reasons that why having window coverings in the house is beneficial to you. Number 1 is the style. You know, with adding window coverings, you can make a room look formal, informal, contemporary. You can definitely bring a style and a warmth to the room. Second one, probably, I think the most important would be privacy. We all want to have privacy inside the house, so honeycomb shades are perfect. They would let the light in, but nobody can see inside and outside. I think the third most important reason would be the light that comes through. If you don't have any window coverings, your wood floor can get faded, your area rugs can get affected by the lights. The next important one would be the energy cost. Yes. With the window covering, you can make the room cooler, warmer, and definitely helps you with keeping the cost of your electricity and gas low. Last but not least would be how much value it would add to your home. If you're thinking about selling your home, definitely the right window covering, window treatment makes your home more elegant and more desirable.
More representative,
yeah.
Yes. I agree with all of them. And I highly recommend you, if you're looking for window coverings, come see Sherry B at Santa Barbara Design Center and get the right and proper window covering and add to your home and make your life happier.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. Welcome back to Design Santa Barbara. Today we are in Dublin, Ireland, in Trinity College. There is an amazing artifact in this college worth seeing. Let's explore this. The library of Trinity College is one of the most famous book depositories in the world. It contains the Book of Kells, an illuminated manuscript gospel book in Latin, containing the 4 Gospels of the New Testament, together with various prefatory texts and tables. It is believed to have been created around 880. The text of the Gospels is largely drawn from the Vulgate, although it also includes several passages drawn from the earlier versions of the Bible known as the Vetus Latina. It is regarded as a masterwork of Western calligraphy and the pinnacle of insular illumination. The manuscript takes its name from the Abbey of Kells, County Meath, which was its home for centuries. Protestants became a majority in Dublin in the 1640s, when thousands of them fled there to escape the Irish Rebellion of 1641. When the city subsequently threatened by Irish Catholic forces, the Catholic Dubliners were expelled from the city by its English garrison. In 1640s, the city was besieged twice during the Irish Confederate Wars, in 1646 and 1649. However, on both occasions, the attackers were driven off before a lengthy siege could develop. By the end of the 17th century, Dublin was the capital of English-run Kingdom of Ireland, ruled by the Protestant New English minority. Dublin was the only part of Ireland in 1700 where Protestants were a majority. In the next century, it became larger, more peaceful, and prosperous than at any time in its previous history. By 1700, the population had surpassed 60,000, making it the second largest city in British Empire, only surpassed by London. During this era, the city was modernized with homes mandated to face towards the river Liffey. At the beginning of the 18th century, Dublin was a medieval city akin to Paris. Many of the city's notable Georgian buildings and streetscapes were built during this time. In the course of the 18th century, as Paris would in the 19th century, it underwent a major rebuilding, with the wide streets commissioned demolishing many of the narrow medieval streets and replacing them with large Georgian streets. Until 1800, the city housed the Parliament of Ireland. By the late 18th century, the ascendancy class of Irish Protestants, who were mostly descendants of British settlers, came to regard Ireland as their native country. Inspired by the American and French revolutions, the United Irishmen planned to take Dublin in a street rising in 1798. But their leaders were arrested and the city occupied by a large British military presence shortly before the rebels could assemble. Shocked by this attempt at independence, the Crown moved forward with the formation of Great Britain, stripped Dublin of its status as Irish capital, and closed the Irish Parliament. Although the city's growth continued, it suffered financially at its loss of status within the British Empire. Many of the city's once elegant Georgian neighborhoods rapidly became slums. Irish nationalists gained control of Dublin's government with the reform of local government in 1840, and Daniel O'Donnell became the first Catholic mayor in 150 years. Increasing wealth promoted many of Dublin's Protestant and Unionist middle classes to move out of the city proper to new suburbs, which are still distinguished by their graceful Victorian architecture. A new railway also connected Dublin with the middle-class suburbs in 1821. Industries such as Guinness Brewery and Jameson Distillery provided the most stable employment in the city. In 1900, Queen Victoria visited Dublin on what became her last major trip before her passing. At this time, the population was over 400,000. While the city grew, so did its level of poverty. This was well documented by writers of the day, such as James Joyce. The first 30 years of the 20th century saw the Irish Civil War and wars of independence. Dublin was a major conflict site and saw repeated attacks and bombings. Many of the city's most beloved sites were destroyed and rebuilt at this time. The conflict was so brutal that by the time World War II started, Ireland remained completely neutral. The years after World War II saw Dublin grow into a thriving world capital. A movement to resign the city saw much of the Georgian architecture replaced by modern architecture. It wasn't until the 1980s that many in the city saw the need to preserve classical buildings. The past 30 years has seen Ireland's economy boom, with the era of prosperity coming to be known as a Celtic tiger. In the early 2000s, Dublin saw the largest economic expansion in Europe. Dublin quickly became one of the most modern cities in the world while maintaining its heritage. Today, it has a population of 2 million people and is considered a financial and cultural center of Europe and the world. I truly hope you enjoyed this view into Dublin, Ireland. It is a vibrant and lively city. I encourage you to visit it and submerge yourself into Irish life. We live in one of the most beautiful locations in the world. I have raised my kids here. I love it here. What we offer at Santa Barbara Design Center isn't just furniture. is a chance to turn a house into a home. What may look like a deal online, it's very different when it shows up. It's something to be said for feeling it before it becomes part of your life. We are here to help guide you through this wonderful process. We are Santa Barbara Design Center. Come start your journey with us. Welcome to Design Santa Barbara. I'm Michael Courage, and today we are in Santa Barbara Design Center. In the past seasons, we have featured great artists in the history. This week, we are going to explore one of the greatest artist movements, Impressionism. Please join us. Impressionism is characterized by small, thin but visible brush strokes, open composition, emphasis on accurate depiction of light in its changing qualities, ordinary subject matter, inclusion of movement as a crucial element of human perception and experience, and unusual visual angles. The term is derived from Claude Monet's 1872 oil on canvas titled Impression Sunrise. Considered to be radicals, the Impressionists abandoned traditional concepts of studio painting in favor of painting in plein air. In early 1860s France, four young painters, Claude Monet, Pierre-Auguste Renoir, Alfred Sisley, and Frederic Bazille, discovered that they shared an interest in painting landscape and contemporary life rather than historical or mythological scenes. Following a practice that had become increasingly popular by mid-century, they often ventured into the countryside together to paint in the open air. By painting in sunlight directly from nature and making bold use of vivid synthetic pigments that had become available since the beginning of the century, they began to develop a lighter and brighter manner of painting. Seeking the approval of the contemporary art world, many paintings were submitted to the most important annual critique in France, known as the Salon de Paris. The traditionalists at the Salon often rejected Impressionists' work, causing outrage. In 1863, Emperor Napoleon III decreed that salons would be judged by the people rather than the just critics, and the Impressionists established their own Salon of the Refused. Many came just to laugh at the artists, with Monet and Paul Cézanne receiving the harshest criticism. Some said their work looked like unfinished sketches. The individual artists achieved few financial rewards from the Impressionist exhibitions, but their art gradually won a degree of public acceptance and support. The movement soon expanded to include Edgar Degas, who in turn invited Marie Cassatt. Disagreement over use of color and composition caused rifts among the Impressionists, and experiments such as Degas' use of photography to capture his dancing subjects in specific poses angered Monet. By the late 1880s, Impressionism had become an established art school, and many of the surviving founders were financially secured. When we come back, we will explore the lives of some of the most famous Impressionists.
Santa Barbara Design Center presents Hooker Furniture. Come tour the Hooker Furniture collection at our fabulous Santa Barbara Design Center showroom, 410 Olive Street.
This week on Design FYI, we're going to talk about sofas and the unknown mistakes people make. Did you know average American spends 46 minutes a day in a car? But they spend 5 hours and 4 minutes on average on a sofa. So why would you go out there and spend tens of thousands of dollars for something you use for 46 minutes and then go ahead and buy something cheap that you sit on it for 5 hours and 4 minutes? At Santa Barbara Design Center, we create your custom sofa that is made for you specifically and to your shape and size and comfort, and your family. So when you're sitting and watching TV or talking and conversing with your friends, you're sitting on actually something that represents you. Your car represents you. Why shouldn't your sofa? Thank you for joining us on Design FYI this week, and please come see me at Santa Barbara Design Center, 4th and Olive, and let me help you find the right sofa for you and your family. We live in one of the most beautiful locations in the world. I've raised my kids here. I love it here. What we offer at Santa Barbara Design Center isn't just furniture. It's a chance to turn a house into a home. What may look like a deal online, it's very different when it shows up. It's something to be said for feeling it before it becomes part of your life. We are here to help guide you through this wonderful process. We are Santa Barbara Design Center. Come start your journey with us. Welcome back to Design Santa Barbara. This week we are exploring the great Impressionist painters. Now we are going to look at some of the individual lives of the Impressionist movement's most famous figures. No discussion of Impressionism begins without talking about Claude Monet. Born in Paris and raised in Le Havre, Monet wanted to be an artist from a young age and was encouraged by his mother, who was a singer. After returning to Paris to study art, Monet frequented the Louvre Museum. He witnessed other painters copying great works hanging on the gallery, but decided to instead paint the landscapes he saw out the museum windows. After meeting like-minded artists such as Renoir and the establishment of Impressionism, Monet and his family moved to England, seeking refuge from the Franco-Prussian War. This allowed Monet to further study the works of J.M.W. Turner and John Constable. His two greatest muses were his first wife Camille, who tragically died at the age of 32, and the gardens of Giverny, where Monet spent the latter part of his life. Here he continued to study landscapes, how light affects color, and what became a recurring subject, water lilies. Next, we will look at the life of Pierre-Auguste Renoir. Renoir was born in 1841 to a middle-class family. His father was a tailor, and in 1844, he moved the family to Paris seeking more work. The family settled close to the Louvre, which allowed the young Renoir many chances to explore the galleries. Showing a talent for drawing at a young age, Renoir was put into an apprenticeship at a porcelain shop, but abandoned this position to attend art school. At this time, Renoir met his fellow Impressionists. Distinctly the poorest of the group, he often couldn't afford paint. Renoir was inspired by the style and subject matter of previous modern painters Camille Pissarro and Edouard Manet. Hoping to secure a livelihood by attracting portrait commissions, Renoir displayed mostly portraits at the Second Impressionist exhibition in 1876. Gaining fame, Renoir traveled Europe, meeting and painting well-known individuals. His portrait of composer Richard Wagner was painted in less than 1 hour. In later years, Renoir moved to the Mediterranean coast because of arthritis. As his arthritis progressed, he often strapped his brush to his hand so he could continue to paint. Just months before his death in 1919, Renoir returned to Paris to see his work hanging in the Louvre next to the masters that he admired as a boy. When we come back, we will be looking at two more great Impressionist artists. Stay tuned, there is lots more coming after the break. Welcome back to Design Santa Barbara. This week we are exploring the great Impressionist artists. Next we will be looking at the lives of two artists whose inclusion in the movement caused uproar among its founders. Edgar Degas was born in Paris in 1834 to a moderately wealthy family. He graduated with a degree in literature but always had an affinity for drawing. After abandoning a career in law, Degas entered art school and made a living by copying great masters' works. Despite being welcomed into the movement, Degas disliked the term Impressionists and attempted to distance himself from his contemporaries in the public circles, but also personally collected the works of Cézanne and Manet. Financially successful, Degas was able to branch out into other art forms including photography and sculpting. His interest in dancers and the movements of their bodies was a constant throughout his adult life. Many of his works are distinct in their psychological examination of loneliness and social structure. Degas frequently painted in cafes, theaters, and other public locations. Degas, who believed that the artist must live alone and his private life must remain unknown, shied from public life. In 1915, just before his death, a Russian filmmaker bribed Degas' maid to take him on a walk through the streets of Paris so they could capture him on film. These 10 seconds are the only known film of Degas. Our last profile is of Mary Cassatt, who is distinct in being one of the first women included in the Impressionist movement and an American among French painters. Cassatt was born in Allegheny City, Pennsylvania, now part of Pittsburgh, to a wealthy, upper-class family in 1844. Her family believed traveling was a key component to her education, and she spent 5 of her childhood years touring Europe. Though her family objected to her becoming a professional artist, Cassatt began studying painting at the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts in Philadelphia at the early age of 15. As women were allowed to study but not receive degrees, Cassatt dropped out of school and moved to Paris. There she found that women were not allowed to even apply to art school, so she independently paid teachers from the schools to train her outside of class. Still considering herself a traditionalist, Cassatt submitted several pieces to the Salon de Paris, but was continually rejected. This further attracted her to the Impressionist movement. With war breaking out in Europe during the 1870s, Cassatt returned to the United States for an extended period of time, where she further established herself in art circles, gaining commissions and financial independence from her family. Upon her return to Paris, Cassatt finally received the recognition she desired. Her painting, Two Women Throwing Flowers During Carnival, was received at the Salon and was also purchased. Cassatt also became a close friend and collaborator with Edgar Degas, who lived just 5 minutes away from her. Worried that marriage would stifle her career, Cassatt remained single her entire life. She eventually invited her family to come to Paris, which allowed her subjects to paint and much-needed companionship. In 1910, Cassatt traveled to Egypt, which greatly affected her. She stated that she was crushed by the strength of the art, and soon after ended her career in art. Once thought of as French extremists, many Impressionists failed to see their work become commercially successful. Today, Impressionist masters' work sells for tens of millions of dollars and grace the walls of the world's finest museums. I encourage you to seek out these great works of art. Visit the museum and take in their beauty yourself. It will enrich your life. Thank you for joining us as we explore this beautiful era.